Welcome back. I'm GTGD and this is video 8 where I'm going to set up the construction system. So basically we're going to set up the foundation for our construction system. By the end of the video we'll be able to place at least one type of tile in the world and start building with that. This one's going to be quite a bit of coding, so let's jump into Unity. So let's make a new script, and this is going to be a scriptable object. I'm just going to call it tile database SO. I just put SO for myself so I know that I'm going to make it a scriptable object. And the purpose of the scriptable object is it's going to be my common reference point, my common library, or my common database of all the types of tiles that the player can place in the world. It's pretty much just that simple. So I'm just going to say using Unity engine dot tilemaps, and using, well, now I won't do that. I'm just going to call the attribute directly. I was going to say using system and then put serializable on top of the new class that I'm going to create, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say I'm just going to use it in the script itself. Now it's not going to derive from mono behavior anymore. We're going to do scriptable object. So this is something different, and you'll see that soon. And at the top of this, I just need to put the attribute create asset menu. That way I can just easily make it make one of these scriptable objects in Unity. In fact, if I just save it, we can go ahead and do that right now. So I'll probably just make a new folder here. I'll call it prefabs and SO. So prefabs and scriptable objects, and inside of that, if I go here, create, there you go, you can see it right at the top of the list, tile database SO, and I guess I'll call this tile database. And that's our scriptable object prepared, but now we need to have something inside of it. And that's some information basically of the types of tiles that we can have. So this is pretty simple. So I'm going to just start with first of all, I'll just put the attribute system dot serializable. Public tile base is the next thing I'm going to write here. Tile, and what I should just say, class is your way to make your own types. So for example, when we were previously writing like private int, so an integer or string, these are all different types. And in Unity, there might be like things like game object and stuff like that. When you're deriving from a mono behavior. So instead, we're going to make our own class now that has data in its own format. So we're going to say public, next thing is a sprite. Okay, and that's our class done. And I'm going to, inside of the scriptable object, create an array. So that's our class. So our new type, our new variable, it requires two pieces of information. It requires a tile base component, and it requires a sprite component. So in this way, we're able to take two different types and combine them into one type, which will make up our database. I mean, that's what we want. And it'll make sense when you see it in Unity in just a moment. So public tile base, tile database. So our new class, I'm going to make a variable of this type, public tile database. Put these square brackets. That means it's an array. An array allows you to, it's like a list, except it's the original form. Well, a list has an array inside of it, but this is an array, which means basically there's there's an index. How can I explain this better? Let's say a filing cabinet, and you've got lots of folders in there, and they're all in order by number. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So it starts with 0 for code. It starts in 0. Your first index is 0. So each item in there is a bit in this array, and the array can be of a single type, basically. Array of, and I'm just going to call it array of tiles database, and just save that and go to Unity and let's set it up. Okay, so here it is. That's our array of tiles database. I'm just going to increase the number of elements in there, so just with that plus button. And what does it need? It needs a tile and it needs a sprite. So I'm going to just lock this, and I'm going to go back to our textures here and just start dropping in stuff. So the sprite is this one, the one we can see, and the actual tile is that tile asset. So I'm going to drop in the wall tile here. So drop in the wall tile asset, and I can also do it this way. So the next one, maybe I'll just pick as the window, and I'll just pick the window tile asset. Let's see, maybe the second element rather. I'll make it well, it is the third element because you start from 0. And I'll make the next one like a door and select the door sprite. So these are all the things that the player is going to be able to place in the world. So let's put the floor as the next one. Add some more for the player to be able to put down. So now I'll put like, the table, for example. So put that in. Next I'll put the bed. So put that in. I'll put in the fields and flowers as well. So let's get that one. So there's our fields. And put in the flowers too. Okay, so that's pretty much our database setup, and we're gonna make now our actual script for being able to place tiles in the world. And I'm just gonna call that, and I'll just unlock this. I'm gonna call that game manager underscore tile placement, and I'll just drop it onto the game manager, and let's open it up. Okay, so this is going to be the actual script that has the logic for actually putting tiles in the world. But anyway, we'll start writing in our code. So at the top, using Unity engine dot tilemaps, using Unity engine dot AI. This is going to be we're going to rebuild a Navmesh. Every time we place the tile, we'll rebuild a Navmesh or update its data, whichever one you prefer to do. So using Unity engine dot UI. So that's when we come to populating with UI next video. So using TM Pro, so Text Mesh Pro. Okay, so we need all of these different things inside of this script. Okay, so next we're going to set up all of our variables. We've got a couple here. So first off, an enum build mode. I'll call it build mode, and it's going to have inside of it. So inside of these curly brackets, I'm going to put in here. There's two types inside. It'll be construct and delete. Well, two options rather. And so and then I'm going to make a variable of this enum. So build mode, and I'm just going to call it my build mode is equal to, and an initial value of construct. It is basically like an integer, really. I'm just trying to make it readable to myself, human readable. All I'm saying is that I have two build modes. It's really 0 and a 1. 0 refers to construct in this case, and 1 is delete. And you can just change it. I'm just going to change it in the code. I'm just making it something. I just used an enum here because I could later add more options in here. Maybe there's other stuff that can be done, the actions that the player can have or whatever, so I could add it in there. But I've just done it this way. It's just easy to read an enum, as opposed to, and knowing what it is when you're reading through the code, what it is, rather than wondering what is the 0, what is the 1 value. I'm saying, for example, so I'm going to say like, if build mode is construct, then we're going to be able to place a tile. If build mode is delete, then I'm going to delete a tile when I click with my right click. Oh yeah, so I'm going to use right click, by the way, as my way of placing stuff in the world or removing it from the world. Okay, so next, public tile map, and I'm going to have 3 tile map variables that will be in the inspector for slotting in. So construction tile map, next one is mountain tile map, and lastly our tree tile map, which will come at the very end of this series. So tree tile map, in terms of doing something with it, and I guess private tile base, tile to place is what I'll call it. This is the actual tile that we're going to place in the world. I might just group these together, so it's for whatever reason I just feel like putting them together. You don't have to, obviously. You can place lines between them, whatever's easy for you. So public nav mesh surface 2D, and this is our actual nav mesh. I'm going to have a reference to it. So nav mesh surface Okay, that's pretty good. And now I'm going to have a reference to our scriptable object that we just created. So public tile database SO, and I'm just going to call it tile database. Okay, I'm going to now make my own tile sort of class here. So that way this information is what I'll be saving and loading to file. So I'll start with system.serializable, put that down as an attribute, it's within the square brackets. Now I'm going to actually create the class. So public class tiles in tilemap is what I'll call my class. Now let's put in the variables for the class. So public int tile index and public vector3 int tile location. And now I need to just define how data goes into this when you use this class, how data goes into this type. So public tiles in tilemap, and just put the round brackets int tile, and I'm just going to call it tile index, comma vector3 int and tile loc, meaning location. And now this is good. This is part of a class is called a constructor. So I'm basically I guess setting up, initializing it. So tile index. So whenever I create a variable of this, all of this will be initialized, and I'll be putting in, and then it'll require me to put in variables as per this to create that piece of information, or that piece of data. So tile index is equal to tile index. So just note that. So I'm basically this variable here, I'm assigning this information into it. So when I use this variable tiles in tilemap, when I use a variable of it, it will require me to pass in a number, an integer referring to the index, and then the location of that tile as a vector3. And I'm going to explain in just a moment what I'm doing here. So just give me a moment. So tile location is equal to tile loc. Okay. And that's the class done. Outside of this class, I want to make a list. So public of this type, of the type tiles in tilemap. So public list, and it's of the type. So just notice what I'm doing here. Just do exactly the same. So it's of the type tiles in tilemap, and then I'm going to give it a name. So that's the type being defined. I've said I want to create a list of this type, and now I'm going to give this variable a name. Just make it up. So list of tiles in tilemap, and now I have to initialize the list. So it's equal to a new list of tiles in tilemap. Don't forget the round brackets and our semicolon, and that's our list created, and it's ready for use. And you'll actually be able to see it inside of Unity as well. But just before we go to Unity, I'm just going to put in another variable down here. And this one is private bounds int. Okay, bounds int, tile map area. So this will make sense a bit later when I write the code. Okay, so what am I doing here? Why have I created this class? I need this class to be able to save what tile has been placed on the construction tile map and where it has been placed. So this is going to, tile index is going to be the tile index inside of the tile database. So if I just jump into Unity, so for example, this house here, you can see it's made up of a bunch of walls, windows, floor. These things are all in the construction layer. What I'm going to do for my system to save and load the data, to save the data, I am going to look at all of the tiles in the construction tile map. I'm going to iterate through all of them. And then I'm going to compare. I'm going to take this tile, actually take the tile, and compare it against what's inside of the tile database. And as you know, it's an array, so it will, when I compare it, it will find, so it will start comparing, so it'll find, oh, it's a wall. Okay, so it's, and I'll capture the index number. So I'll say, okay, it was index 0. And I'll capture as well the location in the tile map where this tile was. So that's what that class is for, and that's what this list is for as well. So you can see this list of tiles and tile map. If I just put something in there just to show, I'm going to put it back to 0, but this is what it is. So I'm going to capture it. So that, for example, if it was tile index 0, it's going to be a wall, and it's going to be at whatever location it was at. So that way I'm going to have this list full of tile information on all of the tiles in my world and where they are. So what is the index? Because you can't save stuff like tile base types, so that you can't actually save the tile to file, nor does it make sense to. And you can't normally save stuff like game objects to file and stuff. So you can't just say, you know, tile map save, and then the whole tile map just magically saves for you and then it loads up. It's not like that. You have to make the system and carefully manage the data for what it is that you actually want to save and load, especially for things like this where tile map can get pretty big, or you might have multiple tile maps that are connected to each other in the same scene. Then you just want to be a bit careful how you do that data. By doing something this simple, it's pretty it's fairly efficient is what I'll say. It's not fully efficient, but it's fairly efficient way to save that data. So that is what I'm doing. That is why I have created this brand new class, and then I made this list here that will actually hold that data of what is in the world. Now let's set up this while we're at it. We're going to write, there's lots more code to write. There's plenty more code to write. But while I'm here, you can see the variables. So let's go ahead. Let's start plugging stuff in. So in my mountains tile map, put in the mountain. For the construction layer, construction tile map, put that on where it should be, and the tree tile map, put that on. Because what I'm actually going to do with the purpose of the mountain and tree tile map here is I'm going to just check when the player is trying to place a tile somewhere. I'm just going to check, you know, is there a mountain tile there actually? If there is a mountain tile, you can't build on it. You can't, if there's something on the mountains tile map, so whatever it is, hills or mountains, you can't build on it. That's just my personal rule. So you can't build on it. Same for the trees tile map. If there's a tree there, you can't remove the tree. You can't build on that tile. So that's what I've got here as a rule. I mean, you can change this however you want to change it. That's all good. It's just for my project. That's how I'm having it. That's the logic. You'll see that logic in code very soon. Okay, so the Navmesh, time to plug that one in. And our database SO. Well, we only have one scriptable object, so that's easy. So that's what we're going to have here. Awesome. So that's all of our variables set up. Let's go back and start writing more code. Okay, so in the start method, I'm going to call a method that I make up. And I just want to put it in here. It's in comments for now. And I'm going to call it set initial references. Okay, so I'm just going to put that there. And in the next video, I'm also just putting another comment. I'm going to populate the UI as well. So that's going to be in the next video. But in this video, I am going to create set initial references. And inside of that, why don't I just create that method right now? So void set initial references. And I'm going to call another method inside of that. And that's going to be my set tile to place. So I'm going to write that method too in just a bit, set tile to place. I'm going to pass in a value of 0, meaning the wall tile, but you're going to see that in just a moment. So now I'll uncomment this, and I've got my method there, and I just happen to write them in exactly the same case and spelling and everything, so it all matches up just fine. So that's that, and we'll come back and uncomment this at the end when we've actually written this method. So inside of update, I'm going to check if the player is pressing their right click, mouse right click. So if input.get mouse button down, and right click is number 1, so that's the int button 1. If they are trying to right click, that means they're most likely trying to build or delete. And then I'm going to say that no action, no building or deleting on mountain, no building or deleting, so that's the comment, no building or deleting on mountain and tree tile maps. Now I need to write some other methods to be able to do all of this sort of stuff. To actually do that check. So I'll come back. I'm going to write code here to do that check. If it turns out it is a mountain or a tree tile map that the player is trying to build on or delete, then in that case it's just going to jump out of this method here. and this bit of code wouldn't execute, which I'm about to write right now, if my build mode is equal to, so note the two equal signs, that's how you compare, is equal to build mode dot construct, then we're going to place a tile at that clicked position. So place tile at that clicked position. And I'm going to also say right after this, else if. I could just say else and then not have to say my build mode is equal to build mode dot delete. But just in case, if you add more options in, this is how you'll format it. You'll say if, else if, for whatever, how many, and then the final one you can just say else. So else if, and for me I just chose to use else if here, so it's just readable for me, so I just can read it, and it's not really gonna affect performance very much. And what I'm gonna just say, I'm gonna put here in a comment and to just delete tile at that clicked position. And we're going to make all of the code to do that in just a moment. Oh, but you won't get to see tiles getting deleted in this video. We need to create the UI in the next video, and then you'll get to see it. But anyway, let's keep going. Let's keep going writing all of the code. So now I'm going to just write this other method, public. It's a public method now. So now this is going to be accessible by other scripts. When I say public, the method is going to be accessible by other scripts. So public void or the UI buttons. So yes, and this method is called set build mode to delete. Just note the round brackets and create the method. I'm going to have a button on the UI that you click on, and it'll then access this method. It'll run this method, and it's going to just say my build mode is equal to build mode. Now I'm setting the build mode, so dot delete. And in the next video, I'll also set the basically active brush sprite. So set active brush sprite. So I'll put in there a delete icon. Okay, so the next one is public void set build mode to construct. Okay, and in this case my build mode is equal to build mode dot construct, and I'll just copy this comment, set active brush. Okay, that's good. So we've got a bit more done there. Okay, so the next thing that I really need is I guess I need to get that tile position, or I'm just thinking rather than leaving so much green stuff up here, I could always just create this method here, set tile to place. So yeah, let's just do that. Okay, so public void set tile to place integer index. So I'm going to pass in a value to this method whenever it's clicked on, and it's basically going to say tile to place is equal to tile database dot array of tiles database and pass in just basically the index value. So this index dot tile. Okay, so this is the actual tile that's going to get placed in the world, and I can now uncomment inside of set initial references this set tile to place. And you will actually be, I will make our UI have index numbers in it. And when you click on a button, it'll then fire this off and tell it which tile is the one to be placed at that time. And in the next video, we'll also basically set the active brush sprite as well. So I'm just going to copy this comment here and just place it there. That's what we'll do in the next video, but this will work immediately. So I'll just save my progress so far, and I guess now perhaps is the time to start thinking about, how we actually get the position that the player clicked. So why not? Let's just do that. So this method's a bit different. It's going to be a vector3 int, and I'm just going to call it get mouse click position. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to return a type, a value in the form vector3. So this method actually returns something. It's not a void and doesn't return anything. See, it's got an error here because it's expecting me to return. See, it's not all code paths returns a value. So it wants me to return a vector3 int, and we're going to give it that. So I'm just going to start with vector3 mouse position. I'm just going to make up a variable here, mouse position, and just say is equal to camera dot main dot screen to world point. So this should be a bit familiar for you from the player movement. So input dot mouse position. Okay, so we've just captured the mouse position, and we're going to convert it into the tile map coordinates. So that's a vector3 int, and I'm going to say grid position. I'm just going to call it that. Grid position is equal to, so I've just made up a variable of the type vector3 int. It's called grid position, is equal to construction tilemap dot world to cell. So I'm going to, this is how you convert world coordinates to the grid's coordinates, the tile map's coordinates. And I'm just going to pass in mouse position. Okay, so now we've done our calculation there. Now I'm going to return this value. So return grid position. And nice. So that's our vector3 int prepared. We've got our get mouse click position, which is very good. I can go back up to our update method. And back up here where I said no building or deleting on mountain and tree tile maps, I can do that check now. So I can say if mountain tile map dot has tile, this is an inbuilt method for the tile map, has tile, so we can actually check if there is something, a tile, any tile, doesn't matter what it is, any tile on that tile map at this location. What is this location? It wants a vector3 position. What location are we talking about? So let's put get mouse click position. So we just pass that in. Very nice. It's going to automatically get a value for us. And that's pretty much that. So if the tile, check if the mountain tile map has a tile, or, so if mountain tile map has a tile, or tree tile map dot has tile at that get mouse click position, then in that case, basically, I just want to, I'll just close this. So close the if statement with the round brackets. I want to just jump out of this and not do any further code, not go through any of the rest of the code. So return. There's no point trying to place or delete anything at this location because it's a mountain tile map or a tree tile map and there's something already there. And I don't want to be able to do anything at that location. That's just my personal logic there. So that's it. So now I've checked those positions. Okay, good. Right. But I still can't, if let's say if it wasn't a mountain or tree tile map, I still can't place anything or delete anything. I need to write the methods that will allow me to do that. So let's do that right down here. So I guess, let's see, I can just call it like void place tile. So I'm just going to call it void place tile. And it's going to need a vector3 int position. So I think you're kind of guessing. I'm going to pass in get mouse click position. So I'm going to have this method and call it from that update method and pass in get mouse click position. And that will basically allow me to place a tile. Very, very simplified code in that way. So place tile vector3 int tile position is what I'll just make this variable's name as. And inside of place tile, I'm just going to say construction tile, very, very simple. Construction tile map dot set tile. So this is an inbuilt Unity method. And set tile, it needs a position. And what sort of a tile are we trying to place in there anyway? So super duper easy. So tile position, pass in the position that we have up here. And pass in tile to place, right? So tile to place. So that's the one we set here, set tile to place, and that's it. That is actually going to change the tile in the tile map that simply. And later in this video, I need to also update the Navmesh. So update Navmesh. So I'm just going to put in a comment here so I don't forget. And I guess I can go call this right now. So why not? Why not? Let's just do that. So I'm going to go up here, and so I'll just write in here, place tile. And where? So get mouse click position. And done. That's it. So if you right click in the world and the build mode is construct, it's going to place a tile there. It's going to change the tile to whatever the tile to place variable is holding. So what sort of reference is holding? Awesome. Now let's do the delete tile. So void delete tile, and same thing, vector3 int. I'm just going to call it tile position, this variable as well, and just say it's basically the same code. So construction tilemap dot set tile, again tile position, and instead of a tile to place, very simple, null, just nothing. So that will get rid of the tile. It's so simple as that. You just put a null and that's it, and it's gone. And I'm just gonna put in this comment here, update Navmesh as well. Alright, so going back up here to our update method, so let's put in the delete business here. So delete tile, and just simply delete tile and get mouse click position, and that's it. Simple. So that's pretty much that sorted. So now we're able to place and delete tiles. So that's probably the main stuff, but now we also need to rebuild the nav mesh, right? So I want to be able to rebuild the nav mesh. So let's go ahead and write in some code for that. This is a bit different. I'm not going to just make a normal method and just call that at the after placing a tile, because if I call it in the same frame or in the midst of the frame, it doesn't update. The nav mesh won't update and capture the latest tile added for whatever reason. It needs a little bit of a time delay. So we're going to write a coroutine which will delay the execution of code, and in this case we're just going to wait for the end of the frame. So to do that, you write public I enumerator. Okay, so this I enumerator, and I'm just going to call this rebuild nav mesh. That's the name I'm going to make up for it. Okay, now let's write some code inside of there. The first thing is yield return new wait for end of frame. That's what I'm going to pick, but there are a couple of options here. You can actually put in a time delay of how many seconds you want. You could say wait for seconds, 1 second, 10 seconds, 1 minute, or like 60 seconds basically, as per what you want to do. So you can delay code like that, but I'm just going to do wait for end of frame. That's all I need for the tile to be changed and for the nav mesh to be able to capture that data and make use of it to rebuild the nav mesh. Nav mesh surface. So I'm going to take our nav mesh surface. That's the one. Nav mesh surface dot build nav mesh. Okay. And that's going to just rebuild the nav mesh. It is possible just to update the data in the nav mesh rather than rebuild the whole nav mesh, and it just kind of updates it. And I've just found, I was testing with it and I didn't really find much difference between the different options. So I just thought, oh, I'll just build a nav mesh, whatever, and just rebuild the nav mesh. If your world's not too massive, this is just fine. Just by the way, note, if you have a really massive world, like if you're going to try and put 1,000 tiles by 1,000 tiles, that is going to be, placing the tiles is not slow at all. That's easy. So placing the tiles is quick and fast. It's when you want to rebuild a nav mesh that is going to be very slow. So you'll feel the jerk in your game as you're placing tiles, so you don't want that. If you did that, then you have to break your nav mesh up into lots of smaller pieces and your world into chunks basically, and work that way. But if you keep your world pretty focused in size, then you'll be able to rebuild the nav mesh no problem as you're placing tiles and deleting tiles. You won't even notice a thing. Okay, so that's our rebuild nav mesh. So let's go ahead and call that. Now, so to call this, I'm going to say start coroutine, and I'm going to call it rebuild nav mesh. That's how you write it. I'm just going to copy this code and put it under delete tile as well and save that. Now I have another method I need to just create here. It's not really for this video. I want to just do it in this video. I want to actually make a method that actually captures all the tiles in the tile map and adds them into that very list that you saw up here. In fact, for this video, for the contents of this video, I didn't actually need to write any of this at this time. This is for saving and loading, but I'm choosing to do it now, so that way there's less work in that video when it comes to saving and loading, and perhaps it would be a bit less confusing, so we can spend a bit more time just on the business of saving code and writing to file. So in fact, if we go to Unity right now, this will should work. So I won't say it will work because I could have made an error in something I wrote. But just before we do that, I'm going to put in here public void. So I'm going to just actually start creating that method. Capture all tiles in tilemap. Okay, and we're going to come back to this. Okay, so don't leave the video just yet, otherwise you won't be able to save and load when we get to that video. So let's go here to Unity and let's go ahead and run this. So if I hit play, okay, I can walk around, and if I right click somewhere, there we go. It's starting to build stuff, and that's our tile placement. Okay, enough. So let's go ahead and actually make a method that captures all tiles in tilemap. So first thing to do is our list of tiles in tilemap. Clear it. Because every time this is called, if you don't clear it, because the way I'm doing it is I'm going to add data into the list. So it'll just make, the same data is being duplicated over and over and over, and the list is just getting massive. So I just empty the whole list, and then I'm going to put fresh data into it. I need to capture the tilemap area. That's what we're going to iterate over. So tilemap area is equal to construction tilemap dot cell bounds, and this is how you get the extents of the construction tile map. So this is how I'm going to get how many tiles they are from the minus x all the way to positive x, minus y all the way to positive y. So super important. So that's where I had this variable here, the last variable here, bounds in tile map area. This is why I need it. So I'm going to use it to iterate over. Okay, so now I'm going to make a for loop, a nested for loop. So I'm first going to iterate in the x-axis of the tile map, then I'm going to go in y. So to do that, I'm going to say for int x is equal to tilemap area dot x minimum. Notice I'm not starting from 0 in this for loop because you can have tiles that are negative x. They're in the negative x part of the world in the coordinate system. I mean, that's pretty simple. I mean, even this house here is probably negative x. It's probably off in negative space because the game manager is here in the center. So yeah, that has to be a negative x. So we have to iterate from negative to whatever. It's most likely, if you're building all over the place, it'll be positive, from negative to positive. Okay, and then so there are semicolon, and then I'm going to have tile map area, so x. So we're going to keep iterating until we get to tile map, so x until tile map area dot size dot x. So keep iterating so long as our x value is less than the tilemap area dot size dot x, because then we've reached the end of this tilemap area bounds business, and pretty much I'm just going to say x plus plus. So just keep iterating. Okay, now it's a nested for loop, so we're going to have another for loop in here. So for int y is equal to tilemap area dot y minimum and semicolon y less than tilemap area dot size dot y, and again this one is y plus plus. Okay, and just put that all in the curly within the curly brackets. Now I'm gonna actually start writing some code in here. What I'm first going to do is I'm going to create a coordinate position. So I'm going to say vector3 int, and I'm going to say call this current tile position is equal to a new vector3 int. I'm going to pass in x value, so x, y, and a 0 because there's no z in our world. It's a 2D. Okay, so I'm basically capturing the current tile, the current position of the tile being examined. Okay, so I'm going to examine the tile now. So what I'm going to say next, I'm going to just do a check. So I'm going to say if not, so note the exclamation mark, that's how you write not. So if not construction tile map dot has tile at this position, so it needs this the location, so current tile position. So if it doesn't have a tile there, well, we've got no data that needs to be saved. There is actually no tile there. So I'm just going to say continue. That'll just continue the for loop and not try to execute the rest of the code that appears after this statement within the for loop. Okay, so this is just gonna jump and cause y to iterate to the next value. That's what I'm doing there. So if there's no tile on the construction tile map at that grid position, there's no point trying to save any information. So I'm gonna just say I'm gonna make up another variable here now, tile base. It's of the type tile base. I'm gonna call it current tile is equal to. So yeah, if the construction tile map has a tile there, we're interested then. So tile base current tile is equal to construction tile map dot get tile. So there's a get tile method inside of the tile map class, and I'm gonna say it's the current tile position. So get the tile at that position. So now I'll have information on that tile. Perfect. So now I'm going to iterate through my database and check, does this tile match any of the items in the database? And when it does find it, I'm going to grab that index number. Okay, so if current tile, so I'm going to say for if int I, I'm just going to make up I is equal to 0. So start from 0, I less than tile database dot array of tiles database dot length and I plus plus to keep on iterating by 1. So you can actually iterate with different values. You can actually iterate, you don't have to iterate by 1, but obviously in this case I want to check every row inside of the array, so of course I'm going to iterate by 1. So if once I've started to iterate, now I need to check. So if current tile is equal to compare, so the two equal signs, tile database dot array of tiles database I dot tile. So that's it. So if our current tile is the same as the current tile in the tile database that we're iterating through, if it matches, yeah, we've found the tile. So in that case, we're going to say list of tiles in tilemap dot add, and I'm just going to say it's a new, so we're making up a new variable here, so new tiles in tilemap. So add this new variable of the type tiles in tilemap, and I'm going to pass in I, and I'm going to pass in the current tile position. Okay, and that pretty much is capturing the data in the list. I'm also just going to say, oops, I've written that in the wrong place. I wasn't even looking where I was writing that. Excuse me, cut that out of there and put this inside of there. Definitely do that. And then I'm going to say continue. Okay, so that way if I found it early in the tile database, I don't need to iterate through the rest of the database. Already found the match. So jump out of here, continue, and it'll go back and keep iterating through the y coordinates there. Okay, so that is capture all tiles in tilemap, and just for the sake of for the sake of just seeing it in action, we're gonna comment this out. I was inside of the place tile method, just say capture all tiles in tilemap. Just do that so we can see the list get built, and I will delete this immediately afterwards. So let's go have a look at this in action. So we jump in here and just notice the list of tiles in tilemap. So currently it's empty. Oh, I should have emptied that, but it doesn't matter. Actually, it doesn't matter because I'm going to get cleared anyway. Okay, so I clicked there and suddenly you saw a whole lot of elements appear in here. There's something like 136 elements in here. You know what that is? It's this house right here. It's getting captured. So it's telling me there's a whole lot of things of tile index 1 at some location. There's something of a tile index 00 at these other locations, and I guess I could, if I really were trying to figure out where things are, I could probably figure it out by putting like a cube in the world and moving it around and stuff. So actually, you know what, why not, let's try doing something unusual like that, and let's set it at something. I'll just set this to 0, and I will just come back here, just have a look at something like the very last item. So -3, also 3 and -3. So let's try setting our cube to 3 and -3. See where that goes. Okay, so that's where it is. So, oh, by the way, the coordinates in the tile map, they're a little different to regular Unity game objects. So Unity game objects are in the center, and in this it looks like it's the bottom left corner, maybe something like that. But I suppose there is expected to be some difference there between the two coordinates. That's why we have to convert between the two. But there you go. Our cube is more or less telling us that that's what that is talking about. I could go and have a look at some other element here. What's at -10 and 0? So move the cube to like -10 and move this to 0. So it's a window. So it's telling me it's this window right here. So that's pretty neat. So that is our list working. So just make sure, yeah, the data is being stored in the list, that it is working. And I can keep adding stuff into the world, and more stuff should appear in the list. So there you go. There are more elements appearing. So that is really, really good. Okay, so I will stop that. Oh, the cube, fortunately, because I put it in at runtime, so it's gone now. Didn't have to worry about that, which is great. And I'll just get rid of this too, just for myself. Just delete that entry in that list. Save this. Jump back to the script and delete this line. So I don't need to capture all tiles in tilemap right now. I know it works. I'm going to call this method from the save script, and the save script will handle this responsibility of saving all of the tiles in the tile map. Okay, so in the next video, I need to do work on setting up the UI so that we can see all of our construction options and be able to select them and see what the active brush is. So that's what we'll do. We'll create our UI and then we'll update the script so that way we can, well, be able to select all of the options and delete stuff too. So fantastic. So we did a lot in this video. So yeah, good work, and I'll see you in the next video.